Part 17, Chapter 33. "I'm really impressed," Terry said to Hale as they zoomed away from the thick column of smoke. "It was easy," Hale said. "I just figured out the thickness of the plastic container when I taped the—" "No," she said. "I mean that you knew Molotov's real name. Most people don't even know Sting's real name." Hale smiled. "That comes from being raised in a Texas household where my dad used to read us the newspaper at dinner. They hated communists almost as much as Santa Anna." He looked back at the fast dissipating smoke. If the Humvee were still working, Deakins would be after them. "We need a place to hunker down for a while," Hale said. "Got any suggestions?" She thought for a moment. "There's an old copper mine about 4 miles from here. No road, just low hills that don't hold tire tracks very well. If we can get out of their sightline, they'll never find us." "Sounds good," said Hale as he tried to use the radio. He tried several times to press the button that scanned the frequencies, but nothing happened. "Shit. They've hardwired in their frequency. We can't call out." "This Deakins seems to have thought of everything." Hale nodded. "There's a lot of bad stuff I can say about him, but not planning ahead isn't one of them." He sat back. "Still, no one can plan for every contingency, and somewhere, somehow, he had to have missed something." "You hope." "Actually," Hale said, "I pray." As Terry sped across a field and into the hills, Hale rolled down the window. The rising sun had begun to heat up the day, and the warm, fresh air felt good, better than it had done when he was hanging on the face of the cliff. Looking around, Hale knew he spent too much time in the air or on the base. The colors out here were sharp-edged and textured. The sounds were big and open. The smells were fresh. Not machine-blown air and pine tree locker room fresheners. Or were his senses heightened, he wondered, because he was still afraid that each of these sights and smells might be his last. The mine was located where 2 hills met, or where some ancient fluvial erosion had cut one great hill in half. It was a Disneyland mine, craggy walls glittering with quartz on the outside, old timbers helping to support the entrance. Set back in the face of the hill were rusty metal doors with a padlock. "This place was barely squeaking along for years," Terry said as she pulled up right in front of the entrance. "They shut it down when they hit an underground river. I thought we could hide the bombs in here." "We may not have to," Hale said, getting out. God, the air tasted good here. Terry turned off the ignition and joined him in the back of the Humvee. "Then what are we going to do?" Hale pulled down the tailgate, reached in, and fished around in the toolbox. "I'm going to take away their reason for being here." As Terry watched, Hale knelt on the open tailgate and unscrewed a panel cover on the side of one of the B-83s. He removed it, exposing an LCD display, a clock, and a numeric keypad with large, brightly colored keys. "Fisher-Price makes nuclear weapons?" Terry remarked. "These keys are designed to be used in Alaska by people wearing heavy gloves." "Oh," she said with an apologetic smile. Hale punched a key which caused the LCD display to light up. "These nukes have a fail-safe security code," he said. "If you enter the wrong code 3 times, the nuke goes dead. All the circuitry shorts out and shuts down. Just like the security systems for car radios and ATMs," Terry said. "Right," said Hale. "Those are spin-offs of Pentagon technology. And people say the public doesn't benefit from defense spending." Hale looked at the LCD with satisfaction. "Could you hand me the radio?" While Terry went around to get the microphone, Hale removed the panel from the second weapon. As he set it aside, he noticed a black plastic tag sticking out from beneath the weapon. He bent over and gently tugged it out. "McCann David," he read aloud. "St. Jude's Hospital, Radiology Department." There was a strip of film across the bottom. "What did you say?" Terry asked as she came back with the microphone. The wire was stretched nearly to the limit. "Where's St. Jude's Hospital?" Hale asked. Salt Lake City," Terry said. "Why?" Hale leaned back on his heels and took the microphone. "Because I think I know what Deke is planning." The captain pushed the talk button. There was a lump of something in his throat, like when he used to call girls to ask them for dates. He hoped he was up to this, trading shots with the New York fast talker. "Deke, are you there?" Silence, wrong approach. He had a better idea. "Ding, ding, ding, Deke," Hale said. "You hear that, Joe Palooka? We're starting a new round, and guess what? I've got you on the ropes." There was a distinctive click from the speaker. Hale could feel Deacon's presence before he heard it. "Well, hello," Deacon said. "Or maybe I should say, hail and farewell, because you haven't got me on the ropes and you never will." "Huffin' and puffin', Deke, that's all I hear. I know you're stalling while you break out the radiation detection scanner and try to fix my location, but you're gonna be too late. Want to know why? Please, share with the class." Hale held the microphone to the keypad as he started tapping in numbers. "Because I'm entering the wrong code, you scum. A couple more entries and these nukes are going to be useless to you." Deakins whistled. Hale felt a chill. "Phew, you really got me there," Deakins said. "I sure didn't think of that." Hale slowed down. He looked at Terry. Before, there had been a twinkling of relief in her eyes. Now it was gone. "All that time we spent in the cockpit together, and in the ring," Deakins said. "And you think I'm stupid? Jesus, give me that at least." "I got some new boards and circuits from a friend at Pantax. Cost me a year's wages, but what the hell? It's only money. And guess what?" Hale didn't bother to guess. He knew the answer. "If you don't stop screwing with the buttons, you may just activate the warhead. Short countdown, 60 seconds, then boom." Hale balled his free hand and squeezed until his nails dug blood from his palm. "But nice try, partner," Deakins said. "You really gave this one more than I expected." "Yeah," Hale said through his gritted teeth. "Well, I'm not finished yet." "Of course you are," said Deakins. "You're cooked, booked, and tottering on the brink." "Maybe, but I know what you're planning." "Do you now?" "Yeah," said Hale. "You're gonna ransom Salt Lake City." Deakins snorted. "Am I really? And what makes you think that?" "That's where St. Jude's Hospital is. You're gonna hide the nukes in the radiology department so they won't show up on any nest or satellite radiation detection scans." Deakins said, "Wow, now I am impressed. How much are you going to ask for?" "Enough," Deakins assured him. "I've got a broker in Stockholm. Handles rock stars, politicians, drug dealers. Monday morning, he's going to buy me 5% of Volvo. For the rest of my days, I'm gonna live off the dividends, happy in the knowledge I'm helping to build the safest car in the world. Money, Hale said. You're just doing this for money. I'm disappointed. Why would you do it? Wait, I know. You demand that Congress give carte blanche to NASA for a moon base, trips to Mars, fancy new aeroplanes to fly. I could go along with that, though I'd rather be personally rich. I mean, put yourself in my boots. What would you do? Hale said, kill myself. Now, Deakins chastised him. That's your left brain talking. Think right brain. Or is it the other way around? Deakins said, I can never remember. Terry came over and pointed to Hale's watch. The radiation scanner, she mouthed. There was anxiety in her expression. Hale shut his eyes and nodded. He knew that time was tight, but this was Deakins, his old friend, Deke, with whom he'd always talked about everything. This had gone way further than it should have, but maybe it wasn't hopeless, and if there was a chance, he had to take it. Deke, Hale said, I want to do something. What? Talk, Hale said. Let's white flag it for an hour. You and I can meet wherever you want. Sorry, no. I appreciate the sentiment, though, I really do. But why do this? Hale yelled. Or let me tell you. Because I got passed over for promotion, I'm going to show the bastards that I'm smarter than them all. Because everyone's selling out and cashing in, I might as well get my share. Because my parents abused me. Because my ex-wife was sleeping around. Hale moved his mouth closer to the microphone. His voice was getting louder. Everyone's got reasons, Deke. We hear them on court TV every day. Because I ate too much sugar. Because Mondays really depress me. Because the videotape I wanted to rent was out. It's all bullshit, Deke. There's no difference between you and the guy who shoots up the schoolyard with an M16. You both think you have reasons. You both think you were wronged. But you want to know the truth? I tingle with expectation. The truth, Hale was practically screaming now, is that you're both totally screwed in the head. You want someone to powder your behind, when what it really needs is a good iron-toed kick. Deakins applauded. Then you accept the nomination for God Almighty. Don't you have that backward? Aren't you the one planning to lay waste to a city? Deakins said, Like I told you, I'm all for the God that smiteth. He sighed. You know, Captain, I actually once thought of asking you to join me on this. You want to know why I didn't? Because I'd have told you to shove it. No, said Deakins. I would have just killed you if you said no. A rush of sadness came over Hale. This was Deke. Deke. Tears collected in his eyes. I was more afraid that you'd say yes, Deakins said, because then I wouldn't be sure I could count on you. That's supposed to be an insult, Hale asked. A fact, pal. That you couldn't count on me to steal nuclear weapons, Hale said. I'm supposed to be ashamed of that? No, Deakins shot back. But you should be ashamed because I couldn't count on you for anything. You didn't follow up on a punch, on a girl's glance at a bar, nothing. If I had to count on you, I wouldn't have been able to see step 1 through. Well, guess what? You can count on me to stop you, Hale said. I promise, you can count on me for that. I'd almost like to see it, Deakins replied. Almost. Truth is, all this running around out here means squat. You're like one of those toy robots, all wound up and bouncing off the walls. You're moving, but you haven't got a plan. Haven't got a clue. Hale looked at Terry, who was standing beside him, listening to the conversation. The worry in her eyes had been replaced by compassion. But I do have the nukes, Hale said. The question is, do I also have the guts to enter the right code, if you know what I mean? Deakins was silent for a moment. You wouldn't do that. That wouldn't be guts, pal. You'd just be saying, fuck you to me. Hey, that's something, Hale said. But in case your thugs get here before I'm finished, or in case I fail, there's something I want to say to you. I'm all ears, said Deakins. Hale said, This isn't guts, man, what you're doing. This is taking a dive for bucks. After all those years of telling me how to fight, you're taking the easy way out. I may not have agreed with a lot of what you said, but I respected you. So yeah, Hale said. Fuck you, Deke, in big, shiny spades. Chapter 34. Hale clicked off the microphone and laid it on the tailgate. He ran his tongue over his dry lips and looked at the mine entrance. When was this place shut down? He asked. Sometime in the 1950s, Terry said. How deep is it? I don't know. A couple of 1,000 feet altogether, with a deck every 200 feet or so. Hale stared at it. He wasn't seeing the mine, but his life. Deakins was right. He didn't follow through with a lot of things. But God damn it, he thought as he turned to the cable coiled around the winch in front of the vehicle. I am going to follow through with this. A couple of 1,000 feet, he said. Yeah, that's deep enough. Deep enough for what? Terry asked. Hale hopped off the tailgate, went around front, and pushed the forward button. Then he picked up the cable and walked it towards the mine entrance. A nuclear explosion, he said casually. Terry had been walking with him. She stopped. A what? Upon reaching the old iron doors, Hale slipped the hook through the metal shackle at the top of the padlock, then walked back to the Humvee. We're going to set off the bombs, Hale said. You're going to set off nuclear weapons just to prove to this guy that you can do it? Terry asked. Mister, this takes pissing contests to a whole new level. Hale went back to the front bumper and started up the winch. I don't have any choice. The cable lost its slack, tightened more, and both the bumper and the lock strained. Like hell you don't, Terry shouted. You can hide them. Deke's got a radiation scanner. He'll find them. Terry came around the Humvee and grabbed Hale by the shoulders. He wriggled away. You're talking about setting off nuclear weapons, she said. The military set them off underground in Nevada during the 50s and 60s, he answered. There's no risk. Tell that to the giant ants, Terry said. Though Hale was concentrating on the door, he couldn't help but smile. I loved that picture. Them, and the one about the radioactive giant grasshoppers. Beginning of the end. He looked at her. But those were movies, Terry. Science fiction. This is reality. We're going to be okay. It wasn't the padlock, but the hinges on the metal doors that gave way. They buckled, snapped, and then the doors flew off, as though Steve Reeves had stepped behind them and given them a Herculean push. They flopped like landed marlins, and Hale shut down the winch. He disconnected the hook from the padlock, which was still intact, and walked over to the mine, thinking what a shame it was that he couldn't give Sam O'Hung Lock Company a testimonial. The inside was cool and damp and smelled like a wet dog, but the mine's vertical shaft was right there at the entrance, which was perfect. Hale left the mine and backed the Humvee to within a yard of the entrance. Then he walked around, back to the bombs. This would be easier with 2 people, he thought, but he refused to ask. He spread his legs, grabbed the handles of the cocoon in which one of the weapons was resting, and pulled hard. The cradle moved, pulling the bomb an inch. He pulled again, and this time there was a tearing sound. He stopped. Hale no longer refused to ask. He looked back at Terry, who moved her hands one over the other. "No, I am not helping you set off a nuclear weapon." Hale let go of the handles and faced her. "We won't be down there when it goes off." "No. He said they'd go off 1 minute after you set them." "This isn't a suicide mission," Hale said. "I can do this another way." "I said no," Terry repeated. "N-O. No, no, no." Hale shook his head. "Why am I not getting through to you?" "Because I'm sane and you're not." "Is that what you think?" Hale yelled. "Try this logic on for size. If we don't do this, Deakins gets the bombs back. If Deakins gets the bombs back, he holds a city for ransom. If the government doesn't pay, and it won't, my ex-partner blows the city up. And he will, trust me. What's the population of Salt Lake? 750,000? "Give or take," Terry said. "And depending on which way the wind's blowing, he gets a bonus, irradiating a large swathe of Nevada and parts of California, or else Colorado and Kansas. You call me tetched for wanting to stop that? And then what about copycat assholes who decide to terrorize other cities? Nukes aren't as difficult to come by as you might think." Terry exhaled forcefully. "I just can't believe he's sick enough to do it. I can't." "Why? Because you and I wouldn't? Most people wouldn't try to shoot their flying partners in the head or reject them without a shoulder harness, but he did. Believe me, Terry, Deke will nuke Salt Lake City." Terry snarled and stalked over. She was angry, at herself, Hale figured. "I hate these ethical dilemmas," she said. "Why can't it be like, you see someone drop $1 and you have to decide whether or not to give it back? Why does it have to be whether to set off atomic bombs?" "It's really the same dilemma," Hale said as she grabbed one end of a cocoon while he took the other. "It's right versus wrong. The only difference is the stakes. I'll say." Hale gave her a second, then asked, "I hate to push this, but we're a little short of time. Are you ready?" Terry took a few deep breaths, then nodded. "If we live," she said, "you can buy me dinner and tell me where this death wish of yours came from." Hale grinned. "On 3, he said. Their faces turned red as they hoisted the weapon from the Humvee to the entrance of the mine. They laid it on the ground as gently as possible, then went back for the other. When they were finished, Hale ran back for the winch cable. He wrapped it around the fixed ringlets of one, then the other, then tugged it hard to test it. "I think you should send them one at a time," Terry said. "These things are guaranteed for up to 2 tons, he told her. Besides, we don't have the time. The bombs were resting on the edge of the shaft, and to start them on their way, Hale lay on his back, braced his hands on the wall behind his head, and pushed the heads with his feet. The weapons grated roughly against the dirt floor and swung slowly over the precipice, nose, midsection, and finally the tail. The winglets clashed against the cable as the bombs went over. The winch creaked behind them, but the cable held. Hale rose, perspiring in little rivers. "See?" he said. "Nothing to worry about." He ran to the front of the Humvee, got the flashlight, started the winch, then ran back. He grabbed Terry's hand on the way and pulled her towards the shaft. He sat on the edge, over the bombs. "Sit," he said. She did, warily, then asked why. "Because I need you to come with me," he said as he lowered himself carefully onto the tail of one of the bombs. He stood there descending slowly, holding the cable with one hand and extending the other towards Terry. "Someone has to hold the flashlight while I set things up." "Oh, Jesus God!" Terry protested, but she took his hand, climbed onto the tail of the other bomb, and rode with him into the darkness.